Calls grow louder for Israel to halt its attack on Gaza.
Let's have a ceasefire. Let's stop this madness.
So aid can reach those in the grip of despair. But what would be the terms of a delay like that? A lot depends on what you call it. There would be a world of difference between a ceasefire and a humanitarian pause. Thomas Dagla breaks down why there's so much riding on that distinction.
In Montreal and Toronto, from London to Paris, and in cities around the world this weekend, huge crowds demanded a ceasefire in Gaza, a request that seems simple on the surface, but one rejected by Israel and its Western allies.
We demand a ceasefire. How many children are supposed to die for us to do something about this?
How many deaths do you need to start making a change?
Arab nations like Egypt, Jordan, Qatar, and Morocco all agree a ceasefire is best, while Canada, the U.S., Britain, and the European Union are instead proposing what they call a humanitarian pause.
To get aid in, to get Canadians out, to get vulnerable people out.
Thanks very much for having us.
It's a pleasure.
So, what's the difference? We asked a Canadian former ambassador to Israel, John Allen.
In your view, what is the difference between a ceasefire and a humanitarian pause?
A humanitarian pause is exactly what it says it is. It's a pause to allow humanitarian goods, medicine, food, water, perhaps fuel into the country. When people are calling for a ceasefire, they are basically saying that the war should stop right now.
While the United Nations loosely defines a ceasefire as an agreement to stop hostilities, it says a humanitarian pause is considered temporary and purely for humanitarian purposes.
Certainly a humanitarian pause is feasible, and I would say it should happen. It should happen as quickly as possible. They should increase the number of trucks coming in.
Israel won't consider either option without the release of hostages. Its military targeting Hamas in Gaza from the ground and from the air. So it's up to other countries to step in and stop the violence, says Egypt's foreign minister.
But it is the international community's responsibility always to seek the cessation of hostilities.
But speaking beside him, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said, now is not the time.
A ceasefire now would simply leave Hamas in place, able to regroup and repeat what it did on October 7th.
Indeed, Hamas's unprecedented attacks on Israel changed the course of history. In the past, Israel and Hamas have agreed to ceasefires, like 2.5 years ago, letting aid trucks move into Gaza after 11 days of fighting. But this war will last for months, predicts former U.S. State Department negotiator Aaron David Miller.
We're not talking here about a humanitarian pause for in localized areas for 6, 8, 10, 12 hours. If you're talking ceasefire, what the Arab states clearly want is an indirect negotiated ceasefire, which would presumably put the conflict on hold or perhaps even end it.
Around the world, the protests will rage on, with no one stopping the violence for now. Thomas Dagla, CBC News, Toronto.
So let's find out more about the likelihood going forward that Israel would agree to some sort of halt. Aaron David Miller is in Washington. He's a senior fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace and served 6 secretaries of state with both parties as an advisor on Arab-Israeli negotiations. And we saw him briefly in Thomas's story. Aaron, let's go through this, step by step. First of all, people are talking about the possibility of a ceasefire. How likely do you think that is?
I think it's highly unlikely. It's conceivable if the Israelis received assurances that all of the hostages would be released, not just the foreign nationals, which I suspect is part of Hamas's game plan to keep the Israelis. They might agree to a temporary suspension of hostilities in an effort to secure and facilitate all of those folks coming out of Gaza, but under no circumstances will the Israelis agree to a negotiated ceasefire that is designed to somehow stabilize the conflict or perhaps even end it.
And so what about that humanitarian pause? You said you could see one short one, maybe to get people out of Gaza, but especially international citizens, but beyond that?
I mean, the Israelis did it once on October 20 when when Hamas agreed to release the 2 women, the dual nationals. The Israelis agreed to stop military activity for a number of hours. That's, I guess, a humanitarian pause. The other functional result would be an effort to surge badly needed humanitarian assistance, both through southern Gaza, through the Rafah crossing at a much higher rate and level, and also to get needed humanitarian assistance to the roughly 500,000 Palestinians who are still in Gaza City, where the Israelis are operating. That would be, again, localized and short-term to facilitate humanitarian aid going in and to get humans out.
We have just about maybe 45 seconds. In this part of the world, even Canada, when the United States gets involved, it gets a lot of attention. But in that part of the world, how much weight do you think the United States has in trying to, whatever resolution looks like, in trying to achieve a resolution?
Not much, frankly. Not if we're talking about the United States somehow getting Hamas and Israel off of their primary objectives. I don't think the U.S. carries much weight at all. Humanitarian pauses, surging humanitarian assistance, release of hostages, yes, but not certainly not dissuading the Israelis from their primary objective, which is to eradicate Hamas's military organization in Gaza and also end its sovereignty.
Aaron David Miller, thank you very much for your insights.
Pleasure, Ian. Thanks for having me.
Coming up, he was fierce on the ice, but fun on the mic.
Hey, what's it like warming up with absolutely no music?
It's worse than your questions.
How Kevin Bieksa used his talents for a second shot at stardom. He was an NHL star, a tough defenseman who could score and wasn't afraid to mix it up.
And I'll tell you what, watch the hand speed here on Bieksa.
Now he works as an analyst for the biggest hockey show of them all.
This is Hockey Night in Canada on Sportsnet.
Kevin Bieksa is insightful, thoughtful, and always entertaining.
Did you see the 2 terrible passes he gave me in the skate this morning?
He grew up in Ontario and played for Vancouver and Anaheim. I caught up with him last month in Vancouver. I can't think of another player who has made the switch to analyst look so effortless. Has any of it been challenging?
No, of course there's been some challenging parts, knowing which camera to look at and some of the intricacies of being on air, but I was told pretty early on, be yourself and don't try to be a trained journalist. I didn't go to school for this.
The guy driving the bus right now is JT Miller. If you watch their first 4 games, he's the guy playing with the jam and the edge. You bump into the defenseman on the PK, you even look at him the wrong way, it's penalty. Kadri's one guy who gets the goal and is trying to control his emotions. This was their best, what am I trying to say, Elliot?
Game.
I'm an athlete. I'm a retired athlete, and I'm essentially there to talk about hockey and kind of bring the fan into what the players are seeing and thinking, and the rest of the stuff I've kind of picked it up. Obviously, I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, so I want to get better at that kind of stuff, but certainly I had no formal training coming in, and I thought, let's just focus on the hockey stuff first.
I do a live radio show on CBC, and I often think when I sit down in the studio, I'm this close potentially to YouTube infamy if I say the wrong thing. Do you think about that at all?
Rarely. I think maybe on the back of your mind it's there because, as they say, you can say anything once, right? No, I mean, I think everyone's at their best when they're relaxed, but sometimes when you're relaxed, you'll let a word out that probably shouldn't be on TV. Most of the time I'm okay, but it's funny because the conversations that we have off camera are usually the best ones, the arguments or the differences of opinion. And then obviously when you go on camera with that conversation or that argument, you got to kind of tidy it up a little bit.
I was in the studio the other day for the National and did not realize I wasn't supposed to actually be on air. They accidentally put me on air, so that's a lesson. Like anytime you're in the studio.
And you swear a lot. I've already learned that about you, so
right.
Yeah, be careful.
I got very, very lucky at that moment, absolutely. When I think of you as a hockey player, 2 things come to mind.
really, really skilled.
Yeah, that's right. Three things come to mind. Really, really skilled, but also you were a fighter. Like, you were a tough guy. When you needed to, you were able to fight. I saw a clip, I think it's from a podcast, of an interview you did.
And I love to get hit in a fight, guys. I know we're talking about fighting a lot, but I love to get hit in a fight as long as I won.
You said you like getting punched.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds weird to me.
Yeah, to most people. And I grew up with two brothers and a pretty physical dad. And I mean, we wrestled. We're big WWF wrestling fans, and we threw each other around and kind of smacked each other around. And that's just the way I was brought up. So I think everyone, you get hit once in a while, it keeps you honest. So the most important thing in the fight for me was always winning. I didn't really care about, never really worried about getting hurt or getting hit. It's like I just wanted to win, because there's so much momentum that comes from winning a fight in an NHL hockey game for your team, and it affects the game, right? But it's nice to get hit once in a while and have like a little shiner coming out of it. And then the next day I'm dropping my son off at Montessori school and I have a big black eye. Like, that was always kind of a badge of honor for me.
Now we get a fight.
Bieksa's a veteran of the wars.
You know, when I was a kid, we heard that fighting is part of the game. It just happens, you know, and I accepted that. And then over the years, I've heard like some of the enforcers couldn't sleep the night before. And some of the injuries were gruesome, some of the broken bones in their face. So I just wonder, as you look at it now in 2023, what place does fighting have in hockey?
Well, it's evolved, and I don't think you have the fighters anymore like you did when I played. There was guys where their job was essentially to go out and fight probably every other game. So they're looking at, 30, 40 fights a season. And back then, a heavyweight was 6'5", 250. That was a normal size. So yeah, I can understand the anxieties for players going into those games knowing that it's one punch away from permanent damage, and on top of that, not really getting an opportunity to play the game. Now, back to me personally, I never felt I was a fighter. I played, I had a role, I thought that was more important than the fighting. I just enjoyed it once in a while.
Finds Bieksa in the lane, scores! To Bieksa, slap shot, scores!
What a heads-up play by Kevin Bieksa.
The other thing I think about when I think of you as a player is you're funny. You've always been a funny guy, and in those potentially terrible between period interviews and after game interviews, you would, make jokes.
Still a young guy, so not that young. Well, I am compared to you, so.
That's true. Did you see the two terrible passes he gave me in the skate this morning?
What's it like warming up with absolutely no music?
It's worse than your questions.
When you were a player, hockey was pretty conservative. Get pucks in deep, give 110%. How did your joking kind of style go over with your teammates and your teams?
I mean, I think it was fine. I think for me, I joke around. There's always like a little bit of truth to it, and I found like it was a good way to keep guys accountable in the locker room where, if I come at a guy hard with something, with a message, maybe it's not received, but if I come at them with a joke or a little bit of fun, maybe the message sinks in a little bit more. But I mean, I'd like to say I was thinking a lot when I was, but I wasn't very thinking that much, right? That's just who it was. Like, it's a game, and it was a lot of fun.
Sometimes in any community, and I'm sure in the hockey community as well, people look back, from the time that they, when you were playing to now, and kids these days are so different, or the game these days is so different. How do you feel about the state of the game in 2023 compared to when you were playing?
Kids are growing up different than I did, right? Let's put it that way. It's a different demographic in the sense of there's a lot of emphasis on skill and skating. When I was younger, it was you have to be tough. Like, you're never going to make it, you're not tough enough. I remember hearing that over and over. You're not big enough. Now, I don't think kids hear that these days. It's all about skill and speed, and it's like a recalibration now of what we value as for hockey players. So with that comes the personalities too, right? It's I don't want to say softer personalities, but they're different. They're not hard-nosed, kids growing up and thinking the only way to get to the NHL is by running a guy through the boards. So you have some different personalities for sure.
potentially, well, I guess a serious issue, you know, hockey in terms of being inclusive. I think that's really changed too over the years. And so people of different backgrounds are clearly welcomed. Women's hockey is clearly respected in a way that it maybe wasn't 30 years ago. But there's still not a single player in the NHL who has said that they're gay. And statistics suggest that there would be some players that are gay. So you're a thoughtful guy. I'm kind of curious what you know about hockey from inside the dressing room to outside. What does the NHL need to do to make gay players feel comfortable to be out?
Well, I don't know what the NHL can do. I know in the dressing room, that's all I can speak on. I feel like it's a pretty inclusive place. And I think people realize the correlation between having a close team and having an accepting team and success. Like the best teams I ever played on, and it's cliche, but we were the tightest. And then the teams that were kind of not as tight and guys went off their different ways and we didn't really hang out together, and you could tell after practice guys were just waiting to get out of there, and there wasn't the joking around, the camaraderie, not as successful on the ice, right? So I think in the room, I think everybody wants to be inclusive.
Less serious question, but I think the answer on this is still important. You coach kids in Anaheim, right? So, you know, hockey parents, what's your advice for anyone who's watching now who's a hockey parent?
Well, they're fun. Hockey. It's funny because I have, like Ryan Kessler, he's coaching in Michigan for Little Caesars, and I have a really good friend that coaches Thunderbirds here, and I have another friend that coaches in Calgary, and we all have the same stories. I have a saying, I say, players play, coaches coach, parents parent. Just stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. Don't overwhelm your son with what you want them to be. Let them enjoy the process too, because the odds are your son's probably or daughter's not going to be playing professionally. So allow them to at least enjoy the experience. Work hard, have fun, and then just let things fall where they may.
You played in the NHL. Living the dream. You work for Hockey Night in Canada, living a dream a lot of other people have, and you're still a relatively young man. What's next?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. The thing I like about this, the media side and the schedule that I have, Hockey Night on Saturdays, is I'm still allowed to be around my kids during the week. And that was important to me because we travel a lot in the NHL, and I missed a lot of birthdays and I missed a lot of important dates. And like my daughter has a dance performance that I'm going to jet home for tomorrow. Those things I value, and I know my kids are getting older and they won't always be there. So to be able to be home during the week and not traveling around with the team or doing color with the same thing, you're traveling around to the site, I think that's important to me. So I'll continue to do this until my kids move on to university and enjoy it.
Well, you were very, very good at what you do, and it's been fun watching you on Hockey Night in Canada.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So a couple of things. We did that interview in mid-October. That's why we're not wearing poppies. And that joke he made about me swearing a lot, just a joke. A Canadian has continued his domination in the world of professional bodybuilding.
5-time Olympia champion, folks. How's it feel, Chris? Does it get sweeter every time?
How he flexed his way to the top, next in our moment. This is Chris Bumstead, born and raised in Ottawa, and he's holding up 5 fingers because he won his 5th consecutive Olympia title yesterday in the classic physique category. The Canadian has skyrocketed to international fame in the bodybuilding community, where some consider him to be one of the all-time greats. Tonight, his victory and his powerful reaction is our moment.
And 5-time Olympia there we go. Chris Bumstead.
This one's really special. I honestly tore my lat like 10 weeks out. No one even knows that. And then it was like no training for a while. But I told myself I was going to lean on the people I love. I called my fiance, called Hani, and I cried. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And that was one of those things, we're leaning on people I love. They all looked at me and they're like, you don't have to do this. And we'll love you no matter what you do. And that filled me up with courage to keep going, keep pushing. I had my first real back workout where I could train through the pain. And I had a good workout. I remember lying on the gym floor. I remember crying again, and this time it was in gratitude. Because I want people to know that life's up and down. It's about having no quit. It's about not giving up on yourself. It's about leaning on the people you love, enjoying the goddamn journey, and just being along for the experience.
You know, in an interesting way, there's a kind of a thread that connects this to that story we had earlier on breakdancing, because at the top of any field, the amount of work you have to do, how, like, the difference between being first and being 10th is probably so small. And you can just look at him and imagine the amount of work that goes into ending up the way he ended up. So congratulations to him. Thank you for being with us. You can watch us anywhere, anytime on the free CBC News app and subscribe to the National's YouTube channel. I'm Ian Hanomansing. Good night.